change happen. And I'll tell you my personal story and tie it to the work that I'm doing. So I, as Mozart said, I'm an immigrant. I was born in India, came here when I was 16 years old. And that experience of being here by myself, knowing that as many immigrants know, that their parents have sacrificed everything to allow them to come here, and given up so much, because my parents, when they sent me here, I think they knew that I was never going to be going back. And it took me 17 years to get my citizenship, which is really nothing compared to the people who come here and are doing work but simply don't even have a path, no matter how long it is. And all of that, I think, has informed who I am and what I work on today, and the focus on immigrant rights, civil rights, human rights. But I don't think I totally understood how my personal story would affect my life choices. I always knew that it meant that I was going to work for opportunity for all, but probably wasn't until 9/11. I had worked on international global health before that, but it wasn't until 9/11 when the hate crimes started happening against Arabs, Muslims, and South Asians at the time. And I remember watching TV the morning of the September 11th attacks. I had just moved into a new house, and everything was in boxes. And at that time, believe it or not, I had one TV, and it was about this big. And my friend from the East Coast called me at 5 in the morning or whatever it was and said, "Are you watching TV? Have you seen what's happened?" And I pulled out my little TV from a box, and I plugged it in, and I watched, and I very consciously thought to myself, everything is going to change for people who look like me. Mm-hmm. And it's this very defining moment that came to be defined as an us versus them moment by George Bush and John Ashcroft and many others. And I think it was the beginning of, in many ways, it was the beginning of my political consciousness around what we had to fight for in this country to allow for everyone to have opportunities. And so today, when I am on the Judiciary Committee, why does that matter? Because I sit on the Judiciary Committee now, and I'm on the Immigration Subcommittee. We are dealing with all of the issues that this president, this administration is trying to use to divide us and to somehow brand brown and black people as criminals or immigrants as, as lawbreakers, all of those things that are so not part of who we are as a country, and not part of my own story of coming to this country as an immigrant, and being given opportunity, and yet seeing all around me people who are not getting that kind of opportunity. And so these contradictions between our personal stories and experiences and the broader political story that's being told, I think are part of what drive me in really fighting for immigrant justice today. And and I think that I always say that any victory that we have won, and I'm so proud to have founded One America when it was called Hate Free Zone, and have led it for 11 and a half years, worked alongside Dreamers, worked to get DACA. I mean, DACA came about because we couldn't get the DREAM Act passed. That's the truth. And the DREAM Act came so close, passed the House, and then failed the Senate. And I still remember that day, and we had a meeting of all of the DACA folks to watch what was happening in the Senate. But the stories of individual DACA recipients, well, not DACA recipients back then, undocumented dreamers, that is the only reason we got DACA. The only reason we got DACA is because dreamers were able to tell their stories and put a human face on the suffering. And what happens in policy so much is that the human face gets lost. And even when you think about numbers, people talk about numbers and income inequality and wealth inequality. What happens is it doesn't resonate for people because they can't attach it to a face. And so numbers are just a collection of stories. Statistics are just a collection of stories of people, and we lose those stories. And so that, to me, is why storytelling becomes so important. It was part of everything we did. It's the only reason we got DACA. It's the only reason that we won the healthcare fight 3 times, was because people came out and told their stories. And elders, seniors in wheelchairs came and sat in people's offices and had the Capitol Police take them out of those offices. And so people had to ask themselves, is this how I want to treat my mother? Is this how I would treat my child? Is this how I'm going to treat, my son or daughter? And so, the storytelling aspect of our work, I think, is probably the hardest in some ways, because everyone wants to be objective. Right? People say, well, this is an objective study. Let's take the emotion out of it. I actually think what we have to do is put the emotion back into policy making. That part of what we've lost is the ability to see and act with compassion as if people were our people. And I've always lived my life by this idea that